Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be making a volume slider for our game, which will look something like this in the end. It will also persist through scenes as well as save the player's settings between game sessions. If you haven't created any UI yet, just create a panel and you'll be all set for this tutorial. With that said, I do recommend watching my previous main menu tutorials as that is what I'll be working from. Without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is duplicate the resolution text from the previous tutorial and call it our volume text. I'm going to change the text to say volume, change its anchor to the middle right, and its pivot to 1 on the X. Next, I'll set its position on the X to -50 to put it opposite our resolution text. I'll right-click on the Options panel, go to UI, and add a slider. I'm going to call this our volume slider. For this, I'll set its anchor to middle right again, set its pivot on the X to 1, its width to 350, and its position to -50 on the X and -15 on the Y to put it opposite our resolution dropdown. Next, I'll scroll down and set its max value to 1.2, just to show off the flexibility that this gives us. I'll also set the default value to 1, meaning that our volume by default will be at 100%. I'll expand the volume slider, and from there, the fill area. For the fill, I'm just going to set its color to a light green, just so that we have something visual to see. Finally, let's open up the main menu script. To reference our slider, we're going to need a new using tag, which will be using unityengine.ui. With this done, we can now go down to the bottom and add a serialized field slider, volume slider. Now I'm going to create a new method, which will be public void set volume, which will take an input type of float, which I'll call volume. All we have to say in here is audio listener dot volume equals our input volume. Now we need a way to save this value so that we can load it the next time the game starts. To do this, we're going to use player prefs. This is the simplest way to save values between game sessions, and I'll show you how to do it right now. To do this, we just need to say player prefs dot set float, and the first input will be a key, which will be used to access it later on. I would call this volume. And the second input will be the value, so this will be our input volume. To access this, we can use the playerprefs.getFloat function. So create a new void awake, and in here we'll say set volume and give it an input of playerprefs.getFloat, and our key again will be volume. Make sure you spell this correctly. This calls our set volume function and gives it the input from playerprefs. We'll also set the volume slider's value to the volumes that the UI updates for the player to see. To do this, just type volume slider dot value is equal to playerprefs dot getFloat, and the key again will be volume. Finally, before all of this, we need to check if the playerprefs key has even been set, because if it hasn't, we'll receive an error for trying to access a key that doesn't exist. To do this, go to the top of our awake method and type in if playerprefs dot has key and give it our volume key. Again, make sure you spell it correctly. And just put all the code we made into this if statement. With that done, we can now go back to the editor. I'm going to right click on the assets and create a new folder, call it audio. And into there, I'll drag some audio that I have prepared for this tutorial. You can use any audio you like, of course. Now that the audio is in our scene, I'm going to quickly create a new game object and drag and drop our audio onto it. This will automatically create an audio source for us. Next, I'll go over to the main menu manager and find our slider. I'll drag and drop this into the volume slider slot. Then finally, click on the slider itself, scroll down to the on value change and hit the plus icon. I'll drag our main menu manager into the game object slot, and for the function, I'll choose the set volume function that we just created. Make sure you choose the one at the top, as this will automatically give it input depending on the slider's value. With that done, we can now test. So hit play, and try dragging around the volume slider. It all seems to be working. Now if we exit play, and enter it again, we should see that the slider automatically goes to its last position before exiting the game. Finally, if you have multiple scenes, this will still work if you transition between them. To prove it, I'll go to my game scene and drag in the audio here. I'll go back to the main menu scene, hit play, I can drag the slider around, still all good, go to back and hit play. You can now see that I'm in a different scene, but the volume has stayed the same. That's the end of this tutorial. As always, I hope you found it useful. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to smash like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. If you don't want to miss any of my uploads, don't forget to hit the bell icon next to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.